AI has spoken. Hello, everybody. How are we doing?
All right.
Good, great. Can you hear me okay in the back? Right, awesome. Thank you for the confirmation. I appreciate it. Welcome to a celebration of literature and living writers. My name is Megan Marshall. I'm the director of the Hugh C. Hyde Living Writers series, and tonight is the kickoff event of the fall series. We're very excited because we have not one, but two amazing poets. One who is part of our SDSU MFA family, and the other who is an esteemed local poet, both sure to dazzle and delight. But before I introduce them officially, I wanted to take a moment to thank all the folks who have helped to make this series and this particular event possible. That includes all of our friends at Love Library. I have my esteemed co-host, Markle Tumlin, holding it down in the back over there. Thank you, Markle. And also our other friends from Love Library, Donnie Mukahall, Laura Bliss, and Beth Williamson. I'd also like to thank the Department of English and Comparative Literature and instructionally related activities for their support of this event. And then also Michael Ramirez and the associates from Aztec Shops who are selling books. Did we sell out already?
Yeah.
Ooh, look at that. Okay. Starting off with a bang. I mean, it's a testament. You'll hear why they have sold out already. Lastly, I'm humbled to acknowledge the space that we are privileged to share here. For millennia, the Kumeyaay people have been a part of this land. The land has nourished, healed, protected, and embraced them for many generations. As members of the San Diego State University community, we acknowledge and celebrate this legacy. And just a final reminder, if you haven't done so already, please silence your cell phone. And just so you know, the event is being recorded, but don't worry, you just see this mark. So y'all won't be any YouTube stars, at least not tonight. All right, without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce our first reader, Adam O. Davis. He's the author of Index of Haunted Houses, winner of the Kathryn A. Morton Poetry Prize, and a finalist for the Big Other Book Award for Poetry. The recipient of the 2022 Poetry International Prize and the 2016 George Bogin Memorial Award from the Poetry Society of America. He has received grants and fellowships from the Bishop School, Columbia University, the New Literary Project, the Prague Summer Program for Writers, and Vermont Studio Center. He was also with Colin Waters, the co-creator and host of the Poetry Goes to the Movies podcast. His work has appeared widely in journals and anthologies, including The Believer, Best American Poetry, Boston Review, the Cincinnati Review, Denver Quarterly, the Paris Review, the Poetry Review, the Southern Review, West Branch, and zyzzyva. Currently, he teaches at the Bishop's School here in San Diego. Index of Haunted Houses has been described as a brilliant book about our ghosts, personal, political, mythic, lyrical, and yet very real. He documents and chronicles the music of the unsaid, melodies unheard. It was this music of the unsaid, the haunted yet charged spaces rendered through sharp, sparse imagery and prose that made me welcome these ghostly encounters. In Davis's landscape, poltergeist chew tar, kick cans, call strangers collect. Tarantulas watch you like television. And where the sky is a cinder block smashed by hydrogen and moth light. In this landscape, he works as great poets do to elevate the mundane, to make us see our world and ourselves anew. And though that seeing, the act of indexing all that is haunted, can feel bleak or lonely at times, these poems remind us that connectivity remains. Can you hear us? Testing the locks, the windows, tonguing our way into the cellars and attics of clouds? Listen. The world is a radio for light. Please join me in welcoming Adam O. Davis.
So much. Can you hear me all right? Thank you, Megan. That was a lovely introduction. It's a real delight to be here as a pseudo local. I've been here for 18 years, something like that. So I guess I belong now. Also, it's a pleasure to be reading with Arthur as well. you're in for a treat. I'll tell you, it's gonna be good. And I wasn't gonna start with the index. I was gonna start with some new poems, but seeing as it's sold out, it seems you weren't gonna wait to test the goods beforehand, so I might as well just move into it here. Start off with the first poem in the book called The Bell System, and it refers to Mary, Jane, and Pat, who were the first names of the women who lent their voices to the Bell System's automated telephone system. So if you, like me, grew up in the pre-digital telephone era, if you were to call someone and that someone was not there, or the line had been disconnected, you get this little dial tone go doo-doo-doo. Remember that? And then you get this lovely, soothing female voice telling you that the person you're looking for is no longer there, but you should hang up and keep trying, which it ain't that America in so many ways. The people who were here are no longer, but keep trying. The Bell System. Good night, Mary, Jane, Pat. Sleep tight, you sweet operators of America. Your voices strung like laundry across this nation, drowsy with a full century's worth of light. There's nothing you can't tell me that I haven't already heard gift wrapped in your general American grace. But still, I wonder in what chamber of a horse's ant-eaten skull I'll recover my youth. Our human garden grows rich in these green suburbs, and what I feel is not so much loss as a lesson. That's Mary Jane and Pat. And what I feel is not so much loss as a lessening, as if itself was nothing more than a late model sedan crossing the city limit in search of a better resale value. It's funny, this franchise of molecules that fizzes up in each of us, like motels viral along the interstate, some full while others flicker and die. When will the stars rain down like cheap plaster? When will language be little more than a dandruff shaken from our heads? Ladies, you tell me the number I've been calling has been disconnected, but where did the person it belonged to go? Alone on the line, I find only a prairie alive with funneled wind, a nation heavy with wheat and light, its chorus of dim voices locked in a kind of pharmaceutical sleep. I find a system unchanged, charged electrical pulses that send the receiver scurrying in their cradle, the long hand breath of ghosts rising through switchboards to ask, who's there? Well, tell me, who is there? Who goes? Ladies, please wake up. I want to try again. You know, you just solved the most difficult part of any poetry reading. The most difficult part of any poetry reading is what happens after someone reads a poem. Do you applaud? Do you snap? Do you sit in aggravated silence? Or do you give a general, I appreciate the applause. Thank you. Read a couple more. We're getting into what is colloquially known as spooky season here, and this book sometimes fits that bill. I am terrible at math. I'm functionally illiterate at math. That's why I'm a writer. And that's why this poem only goes to 10. I can't come up higher than that. Spirit arithmetic. 1 mick, 2 nickels, 3 licorice twists before bedtime. 4 hours of a leaky faucet, 5 times now. 6 spoons I swallow, 7 scratches upon the sun. 8 elms invisible to the eye, 9 knots in a blonde braid. 10 attics in this house. In this one we store strangers. So I had a very peripatetic childhood, which meant I moved around a lot. And so I spent a lot of time in motels. And one of the things that always haunted me about these motels was that no matter where you went, no matter where you found yourself, you would open up that bedside table and you would find in there a Bible placed by the Gideons. And that haunted me, and still haunts me, that there's this army of people out there, these Gideons, never seen one, never met one, but they're out there, and they are placing Bibles in the bedside tables of roadside America. And so this poem is for them. It's called Ghost of Motel 6. If this boy you inhabit is a hotel, its neon needles the alphabet lightly. Bibles loam unopened in the boredom of bedside tables, patient little loaves of leather, black in their theaters of compressed sleep. In each room of each lung, silence swells like a syndicate of ants. A ghost unfurls like a flower from the television. The bathroom window broken, the wind asking questions, asking you to come outside, to see what it has against you. I'll read one more. This is Pacific Americana. History is a ship that is sent into the middle of this world's mighty indexes with the mission of drowning its bone cargo, the weight of its curious words too much for conscience to bear. Forgive us, history. We orphan everything we touch. Come back to the index, but I want to read a couple of new poems. I've got a second collection I've been working on here, and the going title is Pyrrhic Symphony. That's the poem that won the Poetry International Prize, which I'm deeply grateful for. Again, I read it earlier in a class, and Sandra insisted that I read it again, but we'll see how we're doing for time here. I hate to repeat myself in some ways, but I'll read this first poem. It's called My IRS. I am two vowels strung 20 years long. My life a ransom letter written by a cardiogram, tympanic as traffic and the lights of traffic that renew the tursets of Esso stations, standing violent as macaws in the ululative night. I need lithium or language, nurse. I need words to fall like ricin from an envelope. Clearly, my synapses need seeing to. So please, repo the verb of me. Conduct me swiftly through the conjunction of Tennessee, where nouns loiter like limbs languid with quaaludes, where daylight breaks like a mouthful of fentanyl over the teeth of a country that cares not for such news. Should a poem be the pill or the pharmacy? Should I pledge myself to this business as if it were Jared Marley Hopkins or Jesus Christ? Here I am, Lord, earnest as a rice cooker, lively as Superman in his leotard, my spiritual fizz empirical as Pepsi and just as cheap. Jesus, Gerard, who will irrigate these ears from terror? Who will whisper that in the empire of swans, the black signet is Elvis? All around me, the making of the malady of my unmaking unmans me. Roadside trash, unrecycled recyclables, my shadow laid like a new suit over the bus bench and birds behind it. All this urban tumbleweed, all these words for worse, when whoever's kingdom it is comes calling for it, will the last televangelist of grammar go angled like an angel in the direction of their God? Or will America just eat my opioids as it, like Nemo, poisons the seas to peace? When I was a verb, I thought as a verb, so I did as a verb, just like the police. Tonight, the moon slouches in its straitjacket of stars. There's a multinational wind afoot, some merry beast loose, all pronoun without surcease. What rookie woods will it rouse first? What islands will it make of our bodies yet? So this new book, this new book is largely about relational and environmental and political breakdown. It's very cheery. So these poems all fit into that function in some manner or another. This one's called Natural Histrionics. The lights of the world were going out, and I was going out with them. So I said to hell with it and walked on, full of hellfire and fluoridated water, a missile of dumb confidence under the sun's sadistic vespers. Dark fell fast. Birds gave way to bats, the moon's black yoke above a big bit of nothing. No light, just implacable night. Soon enough, I found myself in a fix. Quicksand cooled my quixoticism. I sank, not fast, but subtle, a drowsy shimmy into an underworld of alomorphic rock. There, I fumbled among fossils for a while, then quit. My history, finally, natural history. The truth is, we're never alone. The earth is fully peopled with people. When the lights of the world went out, I went out with them. And though you'll never hear this from me now, know that all I ever wanted from love was that it never change. I'm gonna be ego, your hands are gonna get tired. Thank you, Bill. This poem, it was inspired by poker, but I'm terrible at poker, so I won't even pretend that I know what I'm doing. It's called Omaha Divorce. Smoke rises from the queen of clubs' headdress of sun. The king of hearts has killed himself again. The nurse cuts, ideal. All over the Midwest, spring conspires against the electric companies, their skeletal spires humming presciently under the pang of snow. Baby, don't we pang too? Don't we hum as we palm kindness like cards for ourselves, investing our interests in the black bank of the self? Sure we do. But neither of us can say how long the black bank will stand, its vaults packed full of indecisive knaves and women with flowers. All I know is the earth will tick with its traffic of worms as we turn card after card, waiting for the river. The truth is, love is not the ever-shifting face of the sands, or a noun, but a nun dressed in inexhaustible fire who wanders through the rooms of the night without want for water. Love is like the conspiracy of asphodels who push through slush to hiss at the newfound world, singing of this place that we, like stubborn flowers, have pushed ourselves into. Home, they insist. Home. One of my goals, one of the things I tell my students is that every time you write a poem, you should try to get something in that poem that does not belong there. You should try to get away with something that should not exist outside of that. And for me, in this poem, it is Jason Voorhees of Friday the 13th. He made it. I don't know what else to tell you. It's called Underworld. Sparrows go lashed to the invisible vehicle of the wind that wills their wandering as they flicker over fleets of dun Chevy Novas, Ford Escorts, whole artilleries of noble Tauruses and Tiburons, Santa Fe's and Tucsons, whose engines all powder our sunsets purple, who put the heat in the heartbeat of America and mistake Genesis for Omega. Or so it seems at 11 o'clock in the morning when the elms sit oiled in their lawns, as I consider the redistricted act of my life, wondering if the future will be magnificent or misappropriated like a Mecca visited by Jason Voorhees, he of the machete and hockey mask, who championed sport over disfigurement, who condemned youth for youth's sake, and was in this sense a son, a storyteller, a serial killer, a thing that will not die in my lifetime or yours. By noon, my potato sings a shrill opus in the microwave. What would Ovid make of it? Some carb-heavy centaur begging the mythic hero to remember its superheated sacrifice, the whistle of a water nymph as she boils into oblivion. As I eat whatever myth may have been, I remind myself that deserts were once gardens, oceans, ice fields, and what I am only for what is no more. Everything must die in miniature before it is transformed. I'll read one more new poem and I'll read one longer poem from the book. And this one, as was mentioned, during the pandemic, I worked on this podcast called Poetry Goes to the Movies, where myself and a Scotsman who ran the Poetry Center out there would discuss films as celebrated as Face Off or Groundhog Day or Poltergeist or Zodiac, and looked into the kind of similarities between poetry and film. And part of that got parlayed into now there's a digital collection on the Poetry Foundation, which I edited, that features that conceit as well. But one of the things that struck me was that if there's any central image in many of our Western notion of film, it's often from John Ford's The Searchers, where you have the dark frame of a doorway looking out into Monument Valley. And that's kind of where this poem came from. It's called The Aspirin Age. So long as there's daylight, we drive on. Joshua trees roil in our wake like satanic cheerleaders. And behind the Dairy Queen where Custer should have surrendered, I spy a shopping cart clothed in kudzu. All the while, the sky, like a neon sign over the pharmacy's neon sign, the sky, as spirited as that famous American car based on that famous American horse we had to kill off because it represented our spirit a little too well. Now we represent our spirit a little too well. How red those Mustangs met the land that met them. How long their last gallop into that ground we made good through Technicolor. In the theater, we find through the door of the imagined home the frame that fields our imagined past. Above that, in skies dyed deepest blue, we are docent clouds adrift over dying breeds and drought. Dirigible ghosts whose faces wash cotton fields of daytime color until night sparkles like cola in a tumbler. That's the dream, at least. That desert sparkle full of supper and song, where campfire embers ebb upward into an atmosphere that contains the history of everything that ever breathed. Memory is the museum we make of death, and what we forget, we remember in clouds. All right. I'm going to read one last poem. It's the longest poem in the book, An Index of Haunted Houses. And it was written really as a book within a book. Part of the conceit was I wanted to write a poem that actually referenced every other poem in the book, kind of becoming this chamber of echoes in that sense. And it takes its epigraph from a famous court ruling, Stambovsky versus Ackley in 1991, which basically was the first time that the US legal system gave ghosts legal standing in the United States. The deal was there was this house in New York. It was sold to a gentleman. The gentleman bought the house, but then after buying it, he was told that the house was actually haunted. And he was upset about this, not because he thought the house was actually haunted, but he, like any good red-blooded American, was concerned about resale value. And so he asked for a rescission, and the realtor and the family said no. So he took him to court, and the court ended up siding with him, saying that because the house is haunted, he is entitled to get his money back. And if you are into reading legal briefs, I don't know why you would be. But if you are, you can read them. It's got a lot of fun, kind of spooky double entendres, references to Hamlet's ghost and Ghostbusters and everything else, and the Amityville Horror. But this is Stetson Retrograde. It's a poem in 6 parts, and this is the epigraph. As a matter of law, the house is haunted. Stambovsky versus Ackley, 1991. 1. If a house is haunted like a radio is haunted, if a body is a radio of blood, if a body of ghosts hums like blood over a valley of bone, if blood is a government of ghosts, if bones grow green as cash in the foreign national of our ghosts, if homes bloom along the interstate of our blood, if from granaries of bone we rise in the newspaper dawn, if amongst the chattering of water we rise like a benediction over the auspices of convenience, if ghosts, we rise like ghosts. If we collect like desire in a desert payphone. If we ring like coins in the cup of night. If we lie like coins in the palm of Nebraska. If the sun is an argument with ghosts, if the sun's argument plays out in squares upon the floor of this home. If the day winds down like a watch, if heaven is a horology, if desire is the body we give the past. If at night termites tick like time in our bones, if in these bones we find the bodies for closure. 2. If in foreclosure we find the math of our homes, if the math of our homes is the math of fire, if the math of fire is the math of money, if the math of money is a map of interstate rain, if grief is a cup, let me drink from it and be drunk. If drunk and wandering, if thirsty and moneyed, if coined and fashionable, if drunk and wandering like a dog through the supermarkets of the night, if I want the question of a home, if I want as a windmill wants the wind, if I want that lesson, if I want the lesson that breaks me, if I want the desert and its wind, if I want to throw myself to it, if I want never to be seen again, if by the light of dentistry my teeth anoint ledgers lavish with loss, if in these ledgers every tooth is a house, if debt is a tooth the dentist will not pull. 3. If awake, if waking, if awake in the wake of sleep, if sore-eyed and stubbled, if poorly fed yet feed, if coffeeed and quiet, if humming, if awake and humming in the halls of convenience, if aching under the auspice of birds whose voices are feathered and vaulted and keyed, if of our voices we build a bank, will it not speak? If we atone, if we in our homes atone, if we sink alone into the chloroform fiduciary of home, if we pill and drone, if we alone are alone, if we tether ourselves to the stones of our homes, if we sink to lazier bones, if we believe bankruptcy is a throne, if along the rails the whistle no longer blows. 4. If we choose, if we had chosen, if we better, if we had been better and awake, if we had accounted, if we had awakened from the tax of sleep to the muted bells of bills that rang like fire in the foundries of past lovers, if lovers and we sleep, if like fire we build a forest for overages, if for a surcharge we survive the past, if of the past we make a ministry of the past. If we pass like fire over the waters of ambition, if upon those waters we find our faces and weep, if weeping stops, if stopping stops, if the ghost math of money stops, if named, if a name is cast like a coin over the auspices of convenience, if I call a name, will that name call back? If I call, will I call collect? If I collect like credit, if I credit a ghost? 5. If named for a ghost, if in the name of all ghosts, if the name is named, calls all ghosts to waking, if waking ghosts, if ghosts rise like desire from the granaries of sleep and dress for the newspaper dawn, if newspapered and awake, if hunted by convenience stores, if alone and named, if nameless and unknown, if anonymous as light, if mute as tax, if a dividend of sun sits like a loan upon the floor of this home, if silence is alone, if the sun is a school, if ghosts are a lesson drawn in sand, if the sun looms like a school of blood over a subdivision of ghosts, if subdivided, if the desert like a house of belief is a body dividended with blood. 6. If belief is a ghost, if blood is weather, if bones are birds in a body of fog, if debt is a body clothed with birds, if the body is a myth in the municipal pool, if birds gather like fists of cash on federal clotheslines, if ghosts tremble on foreign buildings like cups of fog, if cash is the myth in the myth of collection, if myth is a lesson in collective loss, if we are learned and lean, if we are lessoned by learning, if learning is a lean-to loss, if a ghost is a home, if a ghost is a thing bankrupt of own, if land is land only, if it is lessoned in homes, if we, like land, grow green with the memory of our blood, if we grow, and with land, if we be, if land is, if we be, and with land, never let us be without, if never without us, our ghosts. Thank you very much.
Now y'all can understand why the book sold out so quickly. Thank you for indulging us with the index and also with sharing some new work. I'm looking forward to the new book.
Appreciate it.
Our next and final reader for the evening, author Kayzakian, is the finalist for the 2024 Kate Tufts Award and the winner of the 2021 inaugural Black Lawrence Immigrant Writing Series for his collection, The Book of Redacted Paintings, which was also selected as a finalist for the 2021 Philip Levine Prize for Poetry. He is the recipient of the 2023 Creative Writing Fellowship from the National Endowment for the Arts. He's also winner of the Open Chapbook Competition for his chapbook, My Burning City. He has been a finalist for the Locked Horn Press Chapbook Prize, 2 Sylvia's Press Chapbook Prize, and the C.D. Wright Prize, the Sunken Garden Poetry Prize, and the Black River Chapbook Competition. He is contributing editor at Poetry International and a recipient of the Mina Savas Fellowship. His work has appeared in several publications, including the Adroit Journal, Portland Review, Chicago Review, Cincinnati Review, the Southern Review, and elsewhere. Currently, he serves as the poetry chair for the International Armenian Literary Alliance and teaches rhetoric to some very lucky students at Rancho Cucamonga Community College. When Arthur was an MFA student here at SDSU, he was in my Living Writers course. And I will tell y'all that I love nothing more than to bring back a former student as now a featured author for the series. Arthur was the absolute ideal student and literary citizen. And no, I'm not just saying that because you're here. Everything a professor appreciates: insightful, inquisitive, engaged, and enthusiastic in his support of both fellow students and the authors we hosted during that semester. So it definitely tracks that the Book of Redacted Paintings is the ideal collection of poetry, everything a reader appreciates. Insightful, inquisitive prose that asks, why is the earth hanging outside my window? What is your relationship with night? What do we know of love? An engagement with the effects of erasure, of diaspora, of trauma, of those who have lived with a missing painting inside them and who carry their ancestors' art in their blood. An enthusiasm of form, metaphor, of image and lyric. As our former colleague Ilya Kaminsky asserts, the new, original, inimitable poet is in the room. Arthur deserves our warmest welcome, and we want to give him our warmest welcome back to SDSU. So give it up for Arthur.
Hello, everybody. I just want to thank SDSU. Thank you for all for being here. Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Megan. And thank you, Blas, for being my wonderful mentors and professors during my time here at San Diego and helping me hone my skills into standing here today. And Adam, I'm so glad I met you today. Your work is extremely powerful. Thank you. So I'm going to start by reading from the Book of Redacted Paintings. This book came about during the pandemic, although I feel like I've been writing it my whole life. The obsession I had with it was, just having a painting on your wall. You know when a painting is on your wall, but it's kind of like removed? So there's almost like a phantom of the painting on the wall that you could see. That's essentially what I picture. But what I discovered today in Sandra's workshop classes, that was just a gimmick. The truth is that I lost a lot of years hating my father. And I could still feel that hate hanging inside me. And I love him now, but when you're growing up, it can be rough. So there's like a love-hate relationship with my dad. I think that's what this book is truly like, the pulse of it, Anyway, I'm gonna start reading. I almost wanted a therapy session. What's going on? Okay. I'm gonna start with the first poem in the book. Dear reader, today I haven't thought about killing myself. Maybe because this week I have felt like smoke. I know it's strange, but most of my desires turn to ash, the aftermath of what burns. I could end it all. The mortgage, the deadlines, the apologies, everything feels like a painting. Instead of sleeping, I am waiting for the sun, the unfolding of a world I taste faintly on my tongue like rain, but it dissipates the way dreams do before they ask us to believe in the planets embedded in our bones. Sometimes I am the cousin of a mirror. I look like the surface of a lake when spoken to. At times, I am an anthology of hellos. Thus, I offer you this walking. Have a seat. Let me show you what's on my mind. I apologize in advance, since I will ask you to see things that do not exist. You may encounter art that lives in a world that could have been. Even a pane of glass will become a painting. You will want to ask it, why is the earth hanging outside my window? Of course, there are things I regret. Sometimes I am a dress torn from its hanger. You can tell by the way I failed to say, I love you. Okay. exiled Los Angeles. We fled from green oil tanks and the scent of chemicals, from fire bluster and windows rattled by gunfire. We fled to make poems out of cemeteries and write prose out of psalms. Here, our windows are stained with promise. Our prayers are made of glass. From a confiscated garden infested with guards, we fled to an army of daffodils. We fled and we fled from Allah burning in the trees, from gutted staircases and swollen buildings sinking to the sand. We fled from the parade of sirens. Here at night, dogs bark in the junkyard, our hands up against the wall. We have been taught we die without one another. What do we know of love? Okay, so, for the spooky spirit, like you were saying, this poem is called This Halloween, and I don't know how I feel about profanity in poems. But I felt like this one was warranted. I don't know. I still don't know yet, but I'm gonna read it anyway. Okay. This Halloween, this year, I want to be a walking painting. One missing from a house with holes in the walls the size of mothers. Houses with imperial stairs and statues of lions and gargoyles. I want to be the kind of painting taken during war, transferred from callous hand to callous hand, a transaction of men climbing through holes in the side of the house with legal language hexed with vexes and allegation, who spit tongue in colony talk and pig Latin, who smell of bourbon and white wig, who pronounce authority in black cloaks. Men who will call me to the stand by my criminal name, case number 37512, please. Men who hire painters oblivious to everything but the aesthetic of what it must feel like to step over a ring of bodies. Fuck that. I want to be a stolen painting so the earth could see the imprint of a wall in the aftermath of hands. I want my canvas to be 1,000 mouths that fall silent when the siren sounds. So when I step up to your patio for candy like trick or treat, you'll open the door and manage a smile. You won't know what else to do. You'll say, and what are you supposed to be this year? I'll want to say the leftover dust of a picture frame, which is another way to say khianat, which is another way to say betrayal. I want to say the dark shade of a canvas in its leaving, but instead I'll say, thank you. I am the result of history. Okay. Notes on art and the implications of execution. So this poem here was, I took lines from, it's like a cento of like myself, like I guess, like he takes lines from like other poems and kind of put them together. And it was interesting the way this came about. But this is really about I'm just gonna read it. Just apologizing, man. Okay. All right. Panache in the general signature amidst the pile of bodies in the center of a blown out church. War notes unsettled in a red notebook tucked in his right back pocket. A diagram of a torso half eaten by an atomic shell. Smoke escaping his resonated pipe, the scent of small apples and ash, a sour fume swirling in his mouth. At least the children of victors will sleep well in their new cities. At least they will keep a house with new paintings. Someone put the hex on my imagination where the last words of an artist hung from a rope. The body of the artist hanging in the air like the general's flamboyant signature. A child turned 7 in a velvet suit the first time she witnessed a bee land on a sunflower, moments before the guards burst through the door. Why do we choose to ignore what connects us was the question that stank the camp. The general's breath smelled of pistachio on the day he ordered the death of 107 artists, small chunks of green meat in his teeth when he smiled. The child held her father's painting to the light and the word help surfaced to the canvas. A family sips tea from imported china across an enormous painting of a woman holding a yellow letter. The artist is unknown. I have lived as an empty theater in the hidden thorax of a fly, where the last words of an artist hung from a rope. The auction was thick with the smell of cigar. Landowners raised hands and battled at the auction over the mysterious painting of a woman from an unnamed painter. How much for the yellow letter? Taunted a tall man in a white suit. The scratch on the bottom left side of the painting's frame was visible to the family sipping tea. The silence in the room about the scrape, the blade, the neck, the screams, the family before, the silence around the scratch and the way it was stripped from the wall. A century later, students doodle little pieces of art in their notebooks the world will never see, while a historian lectures about the tragic death of 107 artists. At lunch, the historian pulls out a bag of pistachios from his book bag. Rain. After he hugs his family goodbye, he passes umbrellas and park benches, sees the edge of a vexed flower petal and thinks the flower is a man off to war. Without looking back, he can hear his children kicking laughter in and out of him. His wife's throat, a gleam of sandlight. 15 years later, rain beats out a puddle in the shape of his body. How we doing, y'all? Good. All right. Okay, I'm gonna read one more from this book and then a few new poems, and that's it. Looking for a poem. You know, this might be it from this book. Okay, here we go. Okay. I sang numbers. From numbers, I sang from numbers. And in my file, I sang from numbers. From numbers, I file my sang. When I filed my sang, there were numbers in my name, and numbers sang my file. My name is sang, and my file is numbers, but my numbers file with war. I sang my war from numbers while I file my name, and when I sang and sang and sang, I sang my war name from numbers in my file. This is some new work that is called My Life in Declarative Sentences, and it's really just this disconnected poem of just declarative sentences. But if I screwed up declarative sentences, I'm not a grammar major. So I was just saying. Okay. I once sang to a group of men dressed in pigeon gray. The stint in my voice tinted the windows green in my personal assessment of the public. I measure the weight of a human soul by the lattice of tattoos on the skin. I don't like horror movies. At night, I stay up late. And the other day, my parents had an intervention about our birds living in a small cage. I like sliding doors, the smell of gasoline, and the snap crackle of a blue light when a moth dies. In another version of this moment, the moth teaches the blue light how to fly. When it's dark, I pretend to be the size of an ant. I want to remain astonished by the world and still hold my own with what I carry. Sometimes I cut in line. Other times I throw a dead president in a musician's open case. I once bought a pack of cigarettes for a homeless man and asked him about his life. His dog knew I was lying. The animal inside me, my deep caved eyes. I know algebra, piracy, the scent of my mother's neck. I take pride in weird facts, like scientists who feed LSD to dandelions. My secret fetish is to disrupt a conversation between two bankers with a question about the value of paintings. What are you willing to die for? I was born in Iran. Now I am a sandbender living in America. I like to write letters to the state. It goes like this. Dear rich people, you say leaving my house is an act of rebellion, but it's only a matter of time. What is the body but a book of hours? Look at us. I know well the glamour of death hinged to a star. Our desire to be seen in this lifetime is all worth the risk if it means our bodies will collapse into one another in the dark. I'll read one last one. It's a short one. Photograph of a dead star. It slipped out of a book that appeared in my dream. On the back was the date your parents met. I think about that star, radiant with danger, nearing the end of a life. Sometimes I strike a match to recall the taste of cigarettes. In dreams, we pass a smoke together like fumes from two burning cities that rise and touch each other. Thank you.
How about another round of applause for Adam? All right, we are going to linger in this room for a little bit. If any of y'all who bought books or brought books would like to get them signed. And then we're gonna have Arthur and Adam in the music building, which is across the little grass area. If anybody wants to join us with my students, come see me if you have questions about that. Either way, thank you so much for being a wonderful audience, and we hope to see you back here in a few weeks for our next event on October 24th, I believe. Get home safely. Thanks again.
Oh, are they? Before you guys get home, I wanted to say hi. Really, really good. Together too. It's like different enough and like, yeah.